Well, for now, though, on the programme, France is scrapping a number of summer events due to the current terror threat. The French Interior Minister called on local authorities nationwide to cancel festivities if they feel that security cannot be guaranteed. The latest attack to shake France was on Tuesday. Two men walked into a Catholic church in a small town, took 5 hostages and then killed an elderly priest. It happened less than 2 weeks after more than 80 people were killed and hundreds injured when a truck plowed into crowds along the seafront in Nice. Well, President Hollande has said France is at war with Islamic State. But as terror attacks keep rocking the country, people are growing increasingly unconvinced by left-wing politicians. And while far-right sentiment used to be seen as too extreme, that's no longer the case for everyone. RT's Anastasia Cherkina reports.
France is trying to make sense of the latest terrorist attack on its soil.
Deux garçons à Saint-Étienne qui...
2 young men at Saint-Étienne cut the throat of a priest. It's madness. How could we know such a thing could happen here?
Right-wing politicians have been raising the alarm over threat of a spike in terrorism for ages. Following multiple atrocities on French soil over the last 18 months, they feel vindicated, and many more people are starting to heed their words.
Here in France, we are turning towards the National Front now. People want to see change. We have always voted left, but when we see this happening where we live, and when we're scared, we are ready to vote for the far right, in the hope that something will change. And I'm not alone in this opinion.
We have never tried the far right before. Perhaps it will make things better, perhaps it will make them worse. We'll have to see.
Of course the far right will see a surge in support. I think France is overly preoccupied with what's happening with abroad, with places like Iraq. I am Muslim, so I know what I'm talking about. But it's time to finally start occupying ourselves with what is happening here in France.
It is true that a lot of my compatriots are asking questions about this. When it comes to such barbarism, the far right is likely to advance.
In France, far-right leader Marine Le Pen was not so long ago being portrayed as a devil for taking a harsh stance on refugees flowing into Europe. The press dubbed it toxic and questioned whether France was going fascist. Fast forward to today, and more mainstream political figures like Nicolas Sarkozy are demanding tougher security and mercilessness. Jump over to elsewhere in Europe.
No one can say how many terrorists have arrived among the migrants, how many are already here, and how many are arriving every day.
This was dubbed the politics of hate and fascism. Austria's chancellor, for one, likened this approach to Nazi deportation during the Holocaust. Fast forward to 2016, and Austria is helping Hungary seal its border with Serbia and tightening security at its own with Germany following the attack in Munich. In Germany, officially welcoming to refugees, talk like this had been a no-no.
There is a correlation between illegal immigration, uncontrolled immigration, and the increase in terror.
The press was aghast with headlines like these. But fast forward again to today, and even Angela Merkel, Europe's main refugee guardian angel, is publicly connecting the dots without being called any insults.
We're noticing, suddenly, that there is a very close connection between us and Syria, because there are a number of terrorists who have grown up in Europe, even in Germany, who have then trained in Syria. And then some come back, and some exploit the movement of refugees to smuggle in terrorists.
Reporting from Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray in France, Anastasia Cherkina, RT.
And Shalman Shaheen from the UK Left Unity Party says the rhetoric of the far right is simply playing right into the hands of terrorists.
The mainstream politicians are borrowing language from the far right, borrowing rhetoric, in some cases borrowing policy, especially when it comes to immigration from the far right. What it actually does when they do that is it legitimizes the policies and the viewpoints of the far right. Marine Le Pen has tried to detoxify the Front National, but her father was a Holocaust denier. We'll find that the politicians from mainstream parties are going to rue the day they legitimize the ideas of the far right. The far right is just as responsible for violent extremism across Europe as the as Islamist terrorist attackers have been. And also the other thing that's important to recognise, Islamic State wants a war. They are preachers of hate, as are the far right, and politicians from mainstream parties will only play into the hands of hatred if they borrow the rhetoric of hatred and the action of war.
Sweeping deserts, a rugged coastline and ancient cities have ultimately made Morocco a top destination for travelers in the region. 10 million tourists flocked there last year, spending a whopping $6 billion. And the country is particularly popular with holidaymakers from the UK. According to the Foreign Office, 500,000 Brits head for some Moroccan sunshine on an annual basis. However, its pristine beaches and historic sites are proving a draw to more than just tourists. Local police have busted a large Islamic State cell. Officials say 52 suspected militants were involved in a plot to create an ISIL province in the North African country. They were also said to be planning a number of terror attacks in the region. Security forces found weapons and bomb-making materials in the homes of various suspects. Now, earlier this year, Morocco's head of counter-terrorism warned that the terror alert remained very high. 25 terror attacks reportedly foiled in just 1 year, while Islamists were said to be planning chemical strikes in 4 cities, as well as at least a suicide bombing. War correspondent Eric Margulies says conflicts and instability across North Africa are now having an impact on Morocco.
Morocco has been very quiet. It has very strong and effective police and security forces, but the storms that are afflicting the Arab world are sure to hit Morocco. And what we're seeing now is the more localized storms in Libya and in Algeria that are finally moving across the border into Morocco. Algeria was racked by this terrible, terrible, bloody civil war. Fragments from the civil war spread into Tunisia, down into the Sahara area, of course into Libya, and now into Morocco.
Well, coming up here on RT International, Turkish authorities pull the plug on dozens of media organizations. Comes as part of an ongoing purge affecting all sectors of society in the wake of the failed coup. The story and the rest of your world headlines for today coming up after the break.